This episode is sponsored by YWCA Cass Clay. YWCA offers emergency shelter, housing, and supportive services to women and children escaping domestic violence and homelessness. Join YWCA on June 28th for an afternoon of inspiration when actress and humanitarian Ashley Judd comes to Fargo for YWCA's Empowered Women Who Rise Above event. Tickets are on sale now at ywcacassclay.org.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening once again to the InForum Business Beat Podcast. Joining me today on the podcast is Myles Montplaisir. Do I have the pronunciation right?
You got it right. That's why I went with Myles the Betcha guy instead of Myles Montplaisir, because it's tough to pronounce. I figured it was easier. You Betcha guy is easier than Montplaisir, so...
Myles you Betcha guy.
Yeah, there you go.
Montplaisir sounds a little French, too. It doesn't sound like the typical Scandinavian last name that we would get in this part of the country.
Montplaisir, oui. Absolutely, so...
And the best part about this is that we got you to come here even though no one promised any beer.
Yeah, what the heck? I should have brought a case of beer, I guess. I don't know. It's 12 o'clock on a Tuesday. I don't know what the rules are here at the Forum, but...
My understanding is that this is a no alcohol office.
Okay.
I imagine your office is maybe a little different.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. We got a beer fridge and a kegerator, so yeah. I would say that the environment is a little bit different, but both doing media stuff, so.
And this feels kind of weird too, because honestly, it feels like you should be hosting this podcast because you probably have
Welcome to the InForum Business Podcast. I'm here with Thomas, and we are live, baby.
You probably have way more podcasting experience than I do at this point, and I promise I do actually have some questions here, I swear. So it has been about 3 or so years since you were last profiled in the forum, and I should say in between then, you had a profile in Forbes as well on their website. What's kind of been the latest for you guys?
Yeah, so obviously you kind of touched on it, the podcast stuff. So we started about 5 years ago. We got our kickoff start in the video realm, doing video content and all of that. And I would say probably last time since I talked to the forum, we've, not transitioned away from video content. It's just become a little bit different. And we also have kind of gone all in on podcasts. And so I'm personally on 2 podcasts. One's called You Betcha Radio. One's called the Bellied Up Podcast. That one I do with Charlie Behrens, who's also a content creator. And then we also have like a golf podcast called the Double Bogey Show that I'm not on, but some guys that work for me are on. So we kind of have transitioned into being a little more well-rounded with doing more podcast stuff, and things like TikTok have helped podcasts become a lot more lucrative in a business sense and allow you easier to gain new listeners and downloads, whereas before it was just a lot of word of mouth. And as you guys know, the podcasting game is definitely a grind because you've got to put out an episode often, and can be a very slow build, but we've been working on that for years now, and so it's kind of our current update.
Do you feel like you've reached the point where it's starting to pay off? You said it was kind of a long build to get to there. Are you kind of seeing the fruits of the labor at this point?
Yeah, so what's funny is, we are You Betcha Radio podcast. We started in 2019, so we had like 2 years basically, where compared to where we're at now, just virtually no downloads, just trying to figure out how to podcast. And then I would say about a year ago, we launched our Bellied Up podcast, and the Bellied Up podcast surpassed our You Betcha Radio one in like 6 months. And I was like, I grinded that out for 3 years. And then in 6 months, this one surpasses it in downloads and all that stuff. But I think it's also, we learned a lot in those first 3 years that was able to make that podcast be much more successful. And, it's the compounding on top of each other of all the work that You Betcha Radio did. We poured into Bellied Up and was able to get that thing to grow so quickly.
So there seems to be, if you look at what you guys are doing now, there seems to be like a distinct emphasis on podcasting, like you mentioned, and also shorter form videos. That sort of was something that caught my eye because this all sort of got started with like longer form videos. Yep. Has that been a deliberate shift? Do you kind of see it that way?
Yeah, so we're constantly trying new things and new ways to create content and do content. I think part of the shift more towards short form content, one, it was a little bit just like a creative block a little bit doing long form content. I mean, there was one point, I think during the big COVID year, we were putting out 2 long form videos a week, and that just kind of wears on you after a while. And I think a little bit of that has caused us to be okay with just kind of rolling with some short form right now. But then you also look at, you can only so many times put hours into a long form video and then put no time into a short form video that's just you with a cell phone and it gets 3 times as many views. You're just like, that really is kind of a blow when you're putting all this work into something and then something that's pretty effortless. And so we're trying to kind of balance putting in the correct amount of effort into the content while still getting the views that our page wants and needs for us to do our business. And so it's kind of a combination of being a little burnt out at doing long form for a while. I think at some point we'll get back into it, but right now we're just podcast focused, and short form is, I mean, TikTok came along and kind of changed the game on every platform, right? Facebook for a long time wanted to compete with YouTube, so they were pushing long form videos, and then TikTok comes along and starts stealing everyone's viewership. So then they start pushing short form on their content, and it's like constant dance and back and forth with these platforms to kind of figure out what they want us to post to.
Right. And that's actually something that I had wanted to ask you about. What do you feel like are some of the biggest things that you've learned over the years of doing this? Because we've seen a lot of changes in the social media environment. Elon Musk owns Twitter now, which is just a whole different thing. But TikTok especially influences what you do, and you see TikTok's influence on other social media platforms too, where we see a lot of vertical videos, a lot of short videos. How have you guys adapted to that, and what have you learned through all of that?
Well, one, I think good content, no matter how it's packaged, what platform it's on, how long the video is, good content will just always win out. And so I think that that's the first thing to keep in mind, that if a video is good, it could not even be in the right format and it still should do fairly well. But you definitely want to help yourself out by studying the platforms a little bit and realize, well, what are they pushing? Or if you keep track of the announcements that the company puts out publicly, well, if they're talking about, vertical video, their algorithms are going to be turned up a little bit to be able to push those more. So just constantly being tapped into what not only the trends are, but also what are these platforms talking about that they want to push to. And I think keeping that in mind when you're creating your content, but also knowing that you can do all the gimmicks and all the trends in the world, but if the content's not a good piece of content or a great idea, it's not necessarily going to do what you want it to do.
So there's a full-fledged, viable, scalable business that's behind all of this. This isn't just, a group of people having fun, even though you guys are having fun and it looks like a lot of fun to outside viewers. Was there sort of a moment where it dawned on you that this could actually turn into or morph into what it is now?
Yeah, so 5 years ago, before we started it, I was running around town with my buddy doing freelance marketing stuff. We called ourselves a marketing agency, but it's literally just me and him just rolling around. No office, no nothing, just working from home. And
that can be a marketing agency. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll call it that. Well, a marketing agency would say they're a marketing agency to sound better. That's good marketing, right? So we were rolling around town just doing freelance stuff for businesses, doing content. And it was tough because at that time, trying to convince a old business owner in Fargo that if we post on Facebook, they're going to make more money was a tough sell. And I started seeing more and more people building channels and profiles and all of that stuff. And so from the get-go, I knew that they could be a viable business. Just didn't really know how it was going to be until we got into it, right? And so we kind of got lucky that we got in the golden era of Facebook ad revenue. So they launched it to compete with YouTube, where they're paying creators for their views on Facebook and all of that. And we kind of timed it perfectly right. And that was our biggest platform. And so that was the first revenue stream that we were able to bring in is Facebook ad revenue. That's changed now. And that's part of the shift from long form, short form, and all that is you can also kind of follow where the money goes as well. If you watch content creators, if a platform decides they're going to pay you to do this content, all of a sudden you see more creators doing that. It's just how it goes, right? And so that was kind of our first avenue, was just getting ad revenue from views. There was no outside stuff. There was no merchandise. There was no brand deals, any of that stuff. And as we started going, that's where you start to figure out enough people ask you for a Bush shirt because you just keep saying it on all the videos, and then you figure out, well, if I do a drop shipping thing, I lose 60, 70, 80% of my profit margin or whatever it is. So I think I got a buddy who can just heat press some shirts for me. And so we started doing our merchandise in-house, and that has developed into a whole new beast and animal. And, part of the reason why we're selling our current building that we are in, we just ran out of space, honestly, and because our e-commerce side of our business has grown so much, so we just needed more space for that. And then brand deals start coming in once you reach a certain level, right? And so we actually have hired an agent out of Green Bay who talks to brands and negotiates things on our behalf, and that's podcast sponsorships, video stuff, appearances, all that. And so that's kind of our business model on the back end, is doing a lot of brand deals, getting ad revenue from platforms, merchandise, and once in a while we do some appearance stuff but around here I try to do a lot of show up to do some charity stuff or donate things to stuff. So it's kind of our back end business model.
Your agent in Green Bay didn't just go on a darkness retreat and wind up in New York, right?
No, it's not Aaron Rodgers, I promise. But no, I've actually met him through Charlie Barron's, and so I'm super grateful for that relationship. And I started out trying to negotiate your worth for a brand deal on my own, and it turns out to be very awkward to discuss what your platform and views are worth. So if anyone's ever wondering if it's worth having an agent or not, I would definitely say that it is. Because at first I was like, I don't need that, but turns out that that's a good business move.
Okay, so we have to walk it back a second because you buried this in there. You met Aaron Rodgers. What was that?
No,
like?
I never met Aaron Rodgers.
Oh,
no,
okay.
No, I did not.
Okay, to be clear. Okay. It just sounded to me, it just hit my ears like, oh, you met Aaron Rodgers. That's kind of cool. Now I lost my place going on this Aaron Rodgers thing.
No, maybe I should try to, though. My buddy Connor McGovern, who's the center for the Jets, who grew up here in Fargo, we went to Shanley together. He's the center for the Jets, so maybe I'll try and weasel my way into meeting him somehow. But
yeah, we'll, I mean, if anything, now Aaron Rodgers is not in the Midwest anymore, but it might actually now open up a whole new avenue for you to meet Aaron Rodgers.
They actually say that the Northeast is very similar to the Midwest, at least like upstate New York and Pennsylvania and stuff is very Midwestern. So, hey. Might as well.
Yeah, I can tell you from lived experience because I grew up in New Jersey that it is very much like the Midwest.
I imagine
in
the
those parts.
Big cities is not as much, but I feel like once you get out of there, it's kind of very similar.
Oh yeah, it's wide open spaces for sure. And again, yeah, I got so hung up on this me thinking you met Aaron Rodgers thing that now I lost my place on our questions. Yeah, okay. So here's another thing. Another thing you mentioned as well is that you are selling your office in Fargo. we do have you in here for a news reason, and that's because you are building a new location in Horace. So tell us about what you're doing in Horace, what that building is going to allow you to do.
Yeah, so one, I didn't want to have to run out of space again and move within a couple of years, because that's what happened to us the first time. We started our build project, and then right when we moved in, we put everything in there, and we're like, oh crap, this isn't enough space. So then we started building this project in Horace, and what I wanted to do is there's a couple reasons why we wanted to go to Horace. One, I love the like small town vibe. It's awesome to roll down, was it Cheyenne or the main road there, and stop into Big Irv's, throw some money down on the pull tabs. I actually heard that like the bingo the other day has got a huge pot that's rolling over and over right now. So it's like meat raffle, all that stuff. I love that.
That's your wheelhouse.
It is, yes. And I think part of it too is that because I grew up in Fargo, it's like when I get to go outside of Fargo and go visit the small town bars and stuff, it's just like an extra treat. And I love that part of it. So that's one aspect of it, is it's like a growing community. It's, and the other part was that we were able to buy more acreage out there, and we wanted to be able to grow and not run into the issue that we had, because the lot that we bought for the building was too small to like really add on or do anything like that. And so we bought 13 acres in South Horace, and it's way too much land for what we're doing with this first building and all of that, but that was kind of intentional. And for us to kind of have a blank canvas down there to, I was talking to the mayor of Horace, Corey Peterson, out there, and he's like, so you going to open up a bar down there? And I was like, don't twist my arm. I don't know if my wife's going to let me or not, but
don't threaten me with a good time.
But it's, that's kind of the dream, right? Everyone is with their buddies having some drinks, and you're like, hey, we should open up a bar. Well, now it's like, okay, it's a little scary, because now we actually have some land to be able to do that. And not saying that we will do that or anything, but just having that option, and it could be something fun to do with the community. It's having something like that, or building some sort of park type of vibe on the land too, that maybe is open to the public, maybe, all of that stuff. Kind of building a community, because right now where we're set up, there's no way for fans to come and interact with us and do all of that. And this, I feel, this project down in Horace with the land that we got is a way for us to grow into, but also have a way for us to connect to the community and kind of give back to the community, because again, we're not where we're at without the listeners and the people buying our merchandise and all that stuff. And so that's a big deal to us, and kind of have that small town vibe.
And the community is sort of what you do is all about, because your whole brand, like the essence of Betcha, is just built around loving the Midwest, essentially.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the whole like thesis on how we started this is, I don't know why the Midwest gets the flyover state bad rap of who would ever want to live there. Like, I started looking, who would want to live in New York and pay $2,000 a month for a 300 square foot apartment? That doesn't sound very awesome either. And so it was kind of hey, it's fun to live here. There's a lot of cool stuff that people just don't know about. And I'm proud to be from here. I'm proud to live here. And we're going to create a page that lets the world know that, hey, we're not like the lame people still riding horses with no internet up here. Like, this is a great place to live. And I think you actually saw COVID, people moving out of the big city and moving to the Midwest, which is like, hey, finally people are starting to realize that. And so that's kind of what we built this whole thing on. And again, that's why I've been asked many times, are you going to move to a bigger city for your business and all that? And I said, where would we need to go? What do we need? We got an airport here. We got a small town bar with pull tabs. Like, that's all we need. We don't need to go moving around. So
not only are you not moving to a bigger city, you're actually moving to a small town.
yes, yeah. And I think probably in 20 years, you're going to see that Horace is just going to be a big city that's connected to Fargo. And we know that, but at least we can get this sliver of the true small town that it is right now. So, yeah.
What are some of the highlights for you over the years then in terms of things you've done or places you've visited because of this?
Yeah, I think what I've been lucky enough to have had happen was working with Anheuser-Busch quite a bit. And one that sticks out is I got to wave the green flag at Daytona for the Busch Clash. So that was like the exhibition race right before the Daytona 500. And so that was kind of cool. I think I started going to Nashville about 3 years ago or so, doing podcast stuff with artists and all of that. And I ended up writing a song with, his name's Phil Moore. He's an artist as well. He's been there for 10 years or so and is a great songwriter. And we were able to put out a song called Drunk I Am. And so that was like a pretty cool highlight moment because I've been a fan of country music ever since I was young. And to kind of go Nashville within a couple of years, put out a song and actually have it do decently well, at least in my standard, was a cool moment. So there's stuff like that that's awesome. And I think of moments that happen, right? So on our Bellied Up podcast, we had a guy call in and he was actually road hunting for pheasants. Which is just road hunting for ditch chickens is what you call
That's
that.
exactly what it sounds like.
Yes,
it is.
exactly. And he called us and he's like, I'm out here road hunting for ditch chickens. And he's like, there's a few of them over here. I'm like, put the phone down. What are you talking to us for? And live on air, you could hear him get one of the birds and he comes back and he's like, 2 more for my limit. And that clip went nuts. And just to be able to capture that truly in a live scenario that wasn't planned or anything like that. Just stuff like that is big moments that you're like, that was pretty cool. And I don't know, if you're, and then kind of back to the grind of podcasting, if you don't just do the work of doing a podcast every single week, you don't get those moments. And so that was stuff like that's also pretty cool too.
So there's a lot going on that we've gone over. Do you see this as like a second act or a new era for you, Betcha?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because I actually do believe we are kind of in the transition period from the first phase of You Betcha into what it will be in the future. And I think a little bit it's just like our Horace project. It's the blank canvas. I think what I would like to do is just start doing more content about just living in the Midwest and being someone from the Midwest and maybe a little less me acting as a dad wearing New Balances. And hey, there's always a place for that and we'll probably always do stuff like that. But I think showing more so the lifestyle and what it's like to live here and not necessarily doing like vlogs all the time, but a little bit more that type of lifestyle stuff. I could see it transitioning, and that's a little bit like what our podcast stuff is too. And so maybe just making that a little bit more into video form. And we also have kind of started to go all in on e-commerce stuff. And so launching brands that aren't just related to our content and all of that. And I call them ghost brands because I don't want anyone to know that we're doing it because I want us to win on that because we build a good brand and do that and not because, you Betcha guys got this new brand. We should go check it out. It's like, it's awesome to build a brand once, but you kind of got to prove it to yourself that you can do it again by building something else. And so that I think is the next step that isn't content related for us, that is building out more e-commerce brands and trying to make those things go.
And I get the impression too that there's a big like pride component in all of this for you. I mean, you're saying you want to showcase the Midwest in this positive light and you want to show it off essentially. Do you kind of see it that way?
Yeah, I think that I am obviously very proud to be from here. I joke that I visited the East Coast, the West Coast, the South, all over the place. And, every single time I still pick living here in the Midwest. And I also really love the Fargo, West Fargo, Horace area. I went to college across the river in Moorhead. So I love this spot. And I think it's a great place to not only have a family and work here, but also to grow business. I think it's a great spot too. And, even just the people that we're able to hire, the talent pool, I think is great here too. And so all of those things combined makes me super proud to be where we're at.
And you've said before that this is, and I asked you about this as well, is this is not just a fun thing to do, even though it is fun, but it's still work. It's still a real job. How much longer do you foresee doing this? How much further do you want to take this?
Yeah, I think we talk a lot at our own company of we have to set our stuff up to be able to do this forever, and not saying that I'm going to be putting out content every week till I die, but being able to build and grow a sustainable business for a long time is obviously the goal. And we've made some decisions that hurt you in the short term that may be better for us in the long run, whether that's partners on brand deals, whether that's what T-shirts and hats you decide to actually do. Is it's always geared towards how can we keep playing this game, because I don't know what business guy said it was, but like your business is so strange because there's no end point to it, right? It's people think it's this game but if the game never ends, well, then it's not like playing basketball where there's a time on it, all that other stuff. Like truly, it's its own unique type of game that doesn't really have an end. That really, it's about surviving a little bit more than it is about thriving. To where the company that makes a lot of money in the short form but then crashes and burns real fast is not as good, even though in that short amount of time they maybe made more money than a company that's a slow and steady race all the way through, growing their company and making a little profit every single year. That ends up winning the game of business much more than these huge flashes of profitability and this and that and evaluations and all of the investors and stuff like it's. And it kind of back to the proud thing. It's like, I'm super proud that we've been able to build this on our own and grow it slowly, as well as have big moments. And so, I think that obviously the goal is to keep going, and not that it's not hard and all that stuff, but I'm excited to see where we go, but also love how we're doing it as well.
And that was Myles Montplaisir, otherwise known as Myles, the You Betcha guy, his real last name, here on the InForum Business Beat Podcast. Myles, thank you so much for coming down today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Get 3 months of local news for just 99 cents a month. You'll get unlimited access to the news you need to stay engaged and connected to your community. Visit inforum.com/subscribe now to get 3 months of local news for only 99 cents a month.